Let's compare Windows XP Build 2600 to Windows Longhorn Build 3718. On the left we have Windows XP Build 2600, which was released on the 24th of August 2001, and on the right we have Windows Longhorn Build 3718, which was compiled on the 19th of November 2002. Let's compare the skin. In Windows XP the title is left aligned, in Windows Longhorn the title is centered. In Windows XP the title bar is blue and 3D, in Windows Longhorn the title bar is blue and has a gradient. In Windows XP the X, maximize and minimize are on buttons, in Windows Longhorn they are not. In Windows XP the X button is red. In Windows XP the menu bar is gray, in Windows Longhorn the menu bar is blue. In Windows XP the menus have a white background and a blue highlight. In Windows Longhorn the menus have a blue gradient background and a 3D highlight. In Windows XP dialog windows have a light yellow background, in Windows Longhorn dialog windows have a light blue background. In Windows XP the buttons are gray, in Windows Longhorn the buttons are blue. In Windows XP the scroll bars are blue, in Windows Longhorn the scroll bars are gray. Windows XP has what is called the Luna theme. Windows Longhorn has what is called the Plex theme. In Windows Longhorn there is also an option to enable the Luna theme. They both also have the option to enable the Classic theme. The Start menu has the same layout in both. In Windows XP the logo is 4 different colors: red, green, blue and yellow. In Windows Longhorn the logo is just white. In Windows XP the Start button is green. In Windows Longhorn the Start button is blue and blends in with the rest of the taskbar. In Windows XP the running programs on the taskbar are on buttons. The Active Program button is dark blue and concave. The inactive programs are light blue and convex. In Windows Longhorn the active program has a highlight around it and the inactive programs are not on buttons. In Windows Longhorn there is an option to enable the new taskbar, which centers the running programs, makes the logo on the Start button bigger than the taskbar and hides the taskbar clock and notification icons. In Windows Longhorn there is a sidebar at the right which you can show or hide using the button at the right of the taskbar. The sidebar is semi-transparent. You can add gadgets to the sidebar. One of the gadgets that you can add is Desktop Manager. It has 4 different desktops, each with a different set of programs open. Each desktop has a different wallpaper. The taskbar only shows programs that are open on the current desktop. Alt-Tab Switcher only shows programs that are open on the current desktop. By default the sidebar is at the right, but it can also be at the bottom, at the left or at the top. Let's compare the File Explorer. In Windows XP there is an Up button, in Windows Longhorn the Up button has been removed. In Windows Longhorn you can click parts of the file path in the address bar to go to that folder, and when you hold the mouse over it, it comes up with a list of other items in the same directory. In Windows XP the file path is just text and is not clickable. In Windows Longhorn there is a Find pane at the left where you can filter files. In Windows XP at the left it has Tasks, Other Places and Details, which shows the details about the selected item. In Windows Longhorn there is a pane at the top which shows details about the selected item. In Windows Longhorn it has a bar under the drives that shows space usage. In Windows XP it does not. In Windows XP there is an option to show or hide contents of the C drive. In Windows Longhorn it hides the contents of the C drive and there is no way to show the contents of the C drive. In Windows XP the view can be thumbnails, titles, icons, list or details. In Windows Longhorn it can only be icons or details, but you can change the size, which you cannot do in Windows XP. Let's compare the control panel. In Windows XP there is an option to switch to Classic View, in Windows Longhorn there is not. In Windows XP the control panel background is blue with a big washed out control panel icon. In Windows Longhorn the control panel background is a white to light gray gradient. In Windows Longhorn there is another control panel options option. The welcome screen has the same layout in both, but in Windows XP it is blue and in Windows Longhorn it is silver. In Windows Longhorn there is a clock in the top right of the welcome screen. In Windows XP there is not. The classic logon prompt looks the same in both apart from the fact that in Windows XP it has the Luna theme and in Windows Longhorn it has the Plex theme. Let's compare Windows Longhorn build 3718 to Windows Longhorn build 4008. On the left we have Windows Longhorn build 3718 which was compiled on the 19th of November 2002, and on the right we have Windows Longhorn build 4008 which was compiled on the 19th of February 2003. Let's compare the skin. Both have the Plex theme, however the Plex theme has been modified in 4008. In 3718 the tabs are white, in 4008 they are green. In 3718 the title is centered, in 4008 the title is left aligned, but in 4008 the title is centered when the window is maximized. In 4008 the X, maximize and minimize are on buttons, in 3718 they are not. In 3718 the title bar has a gradient, in 4008 the title bar is 3D. In 3718 the dialog windows have a light blue background, in 4008 the dialog windows have a white background. In 3718 the buttons are blue, in 4008 the highlighted button is blue and the rest of the buttons are silver. They both have the option to enable the new taskbar which centers the running programs and makes the logo on the start button bigger than the taskbar. In 3718 when the new taskbar is enabled the sidebar goes all the way down to the bottom and the taskbar stops at the sidebar. In 4008 when the new taskbar is enabled the taskbar goes all the way to the right and the sidebar stops at the taskbar and the taskbar has a clock. In 4008 the desktop manager has been removed. The start menu looks the same in both. Let's compare the File Explorer. In 3718 there is a bar under the drives that shows space usage, in 4008 there is not. In 3718 under My Computer it has Shared Documents and Users Document, in 4008 it has Document Library, Music Library and Picture and Video Library. In 4008 there is an option to show or hide contents of the C drive. In 3718 it hides the contents of the C drive and there is no way to show the contents of the C drive. In 3718 when there are no items selected the preview pane says no items selected. In 4008 the preview pane says the name of the folder. In 3718 the back button is green, in 4008 the back button is blue. In 3718 the address is in the white box and has forward slashes between each folder. In 4008 it has a blue background and a drop-down arrow next to each folder. In 3718 the preview pane has an icon, in 4008 it does not. In 3718 you can click all properties to show all properties in the entire file browsing window. In 3718 when you right-click on a file and then click Properties it comes up in a dialog window. In 4008 it opens up in a new File Explorer window called Internet Explorer. In 4008 there is a new folder called My Contacts. In 3718 the control panel background is a white to light gray gradient. In 4008 the control panel background is white. The welcome screen looks the same in both. In 3718 the classic logon prompt still says Windows XP at the top, in 4008 it says Longhorn. Let's compare Windows Longhorn build 4008 to Windows Longhorn build 4074. On the left we have Windows Longhorn build 4008 which was compiled on the 19th of February 2003 and on the right we have Windows Longhorn build 4074 which was compiled on the 25th of April 2004. Let's compare the skin. In 4008 the title bar is blue and 3D, in 4074 the title bar is gray and has a gradient. In 4008 the X button is blue, in 4074 the X button is red. In 4008 the menu bar is blue, in 4074 the menu bar is light gray. In 4008 the menus are a blue gradient with a 3D highlight, in 4074 the menus are light gray with an orange highlight. In 4008 dialog windows have a white background. In 4074 dialog windows have a gray background. In 4008 the up and down arrows on the scroll bar are triangular. In 4074 they are square with arrows inside. In 4008 the window titles are normally left aligned, but go centered when maximized. In 4074 they are always left aligned. 4008 has what is called the Plex theme and 4074 has what is called the Slate theme. In addition to Slate, Luna, and Classic, 4074 also has a Jade theme. The Jade theme has a silver title bar with a gradient. The minimize and maximize buttons are down and up arrows rather than a line and a square. The menus have a blue shiny highlight and the buttons are shiny. In 4074 I think the Jade theme is supposed to have transparent title bars. In 4008 when using themes other than Plex the Windows, Start menu and taskbar take the theme but the sidebar still has the Plex theme. In 4074 when using themes other than Slate the Windows and Start menu take the theme but the taskbar and sidebar still have the Slate theme. In 4008 there is an option to enable the new taskbar which centers the running programs and makes the logo on the Start button bigger than the taskbar. In 4074 this option has been removed. In 4008 the taskbar goes all the way to the right and the sidebar stops at the taskbar. In 4074 the sidebar goes all the way to the bottom and the taskbar stops at the sidebar. In 4008 the active program has a highlight around it and the inactive programs are not on buttons. In 4074 the running programs on the taskbar are on buttons. The active program button is concave and the inactive program buttons are convex. In 4008 the logo is just white. In 4074 the logo is red, green, blue and yellow. In 4008 the Start button has the word Start. In 4074 it just has the logo. The Start menu has the same layout in both. In 4074 some of the icons have been updated. In 4074 by default it has the sidebar at the right and the taskbar at the bottom. However, it is possible to have the taskbar at the right which merges it with the sidebar. The sidebar can also be at the left and the taskbar can also be at the top. Let's compare the File Explorer. In 4008 it has the title bar, then below it has the menu bar, icons and address bar. In 4074 the title bar extends down into the address bar, below that it has a blue bar with the menus and some buttons. In 4008 when you click on an item it has the details at the top and you can click All Properties, which switches the File Explorer window to displaying all properties. In 4074 after clicking on an item you then have to click on the item to make the top display properties about that item and you can also click All Properties, which switches the File Explorer window to displaying all properties. In 4008 the back and forward buttons are the same size. In 4074 the back button is bigger than the forward button. Clicking Log Off brings up the Log Off dialog in both. In 4008 when you click the power button on the Start menu it brings up the shutdown dialog. In 4047 there is an arrow next to the power button which brings up a list of options and if you click on the power button it shuts down. The shutdown dialog can be brought up by pressing Alt F4 on the desktop in both. Let's compare the login screen. In 4008 the login screen is silver with blue bars at the top and bottom. It has the Windows logo at the left and the users at the right. In 4074 the login screen has a black background. It has the users in a box with a gray border and the Windows logo above. In 4008 there is a clock in the top right corner of the login screen. In 4074 there is no clock on the login screen. In 4008 there is a Turn Off Computer button in the bottom left corner which brings up the shutdown dialog. In 4074 there is a shutdown button in the bottom center with an arrow next to it that brings up a list of options and clicking the main part of the button shuts down. In 4008 there is an option to disable the welcome screen and use the classic logon prompt instead. If the welcome screen is disabled the shutdown dialog will have a drop-down menu instead of icons. If the welcome screen is enabled, Ctrl-Alt-Delete will open Task Manager, and if the welcome screen is disabled, Ctrl-Alt-Delete will bring up Windows Security, which is in a window. In 4047 there is also an option to disable the welcome screen, but all it changes is the shutdown dialog. Ctrl-Alt-Delete always brings up Windows Security, which is full screen, regardless of whether the welcome screen is enabled or disabled. And the login screen looks the same regardless of whether the welcome screen is enabled or disabled. Let's compare MS Paint. In 4008, when you click on the Shape tools, it only gives you shape fill options, and you have to click on the Line tool to get the line thickness options. In 4074, when you click on the Shape tools, it gives you both shape fill and line thickness options. In 4074, when you right-click on a selection, there is a crop option. In 4008 there is not. In 4008 you can undo 3 moves. In 4074 you can undo 10 moves. In 4008 the magnifier tool can only zoom in. In 4074 the magnifier tool can zoom both in and out, and it has a slider. Let's compare Windows Longhorn Build 4074 to Windows Longhorn Build 5048. On the left we have Windows Longhorn Build 4074, which was compiled on the 25th of April 2004, and on the right we have Windows Longhorn Build 5048, which was compiled on the 1st of April 2005. Let's compare the skin. In 4074 the title bar is gray and has a gradient. In 5048 the title bar is silver and shiny. In 4074 the X button is red. In 5048 it is not. In 4074 the menu highlight is orange. In 5048 it is cyan. 4074 has what is called slate, and 5048 has what is called arrow. I think the arrow in 5048 is supposed to have transparent title bars. 4074 also has jade, which I think is supposed to have transparent title bars. They both also have Luna and Classic. In 5048 the taskbar also takes the selected theme, which in 4074 it does not. In 4074 there is a sidebar at the right. In 5048 there is not. In 4074 the taskbar is gray. In 5048 the taskbar is silver. In 4074 the start button is gray. In 5048 the start button is dark blue. In 4074 the Start button only has the Windows logo. In 5048 it also has the word Start. In 4074 the Windows logo on the Start button is 4 different colors: red, green, blue and yellow. In 5048 the Windows logo on the Start button is just white. Let's compare the Start menu. In 4074 there is a profile picture to the left of the username. In 5048 there is not. In 5048 the bar at the top of the Start menu is slightly transparent. In 5048 the icons for my pictures and my music have been updated. Fun fact, if you view the Windows XP My Music, My Pictures and My Videos folders in Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8.1 or Windows 10, they will have these icons, which are different from the ones in Windows XP, and are never used for any of the folders that come with any released version of Windows. But in Windows 11 the Windows XP folders will have the same icons as the folders that come with Windows 11. In Windows 8.0 the Windows XP folders will have no icons. In 4074 all programs comes up in a new menu, and each subfolder opens up a new menu to the right. In 5048 the left column of the Start menu switches to displaying all programs, and the folders open up underneath. In 5048 there is a search bar at the bottom of the Start menu where you can search for programs. In 4074 there is not. Let's compare the File Explorer. In 4074 there are some icons on a blue bar at the top, and when you click the top switches to displaying properties about the selected item. In 5048 there is a blue bar at the bottom that displays properties about the selected item. In 5048 there is a search bar in the top right where you can type to search. In 4074 there is not. They both have a search button which brings up an advanced search. In 4074 the back button is bigger than the forward button. In 5048 they are the same size. In 4074 the Favorites button is a big star in the top right. In 5048 there is a Favorites menu. In 5048 there is a bar under the drives that shows space usage. In 4074 there is not. Let's compare the control panel. In 4074 when you click on a category the control panel switches to displaying tasks within that category. In 5048 the tasks are displayed underneath the category names. In 5048 it says the category names down the left. In 4074 it does not. They both have the option to switch to classic view. In 5048 the shutdown and log off icons have been updated. In 4074 the shutdown button has an arrow next to it which brings up a list of options, and if you click the main part of the button it shuts down. In 5048 clicking the shutdown button brings up the shutdown dialog. Pressing Alt F4 on the desktop brings up the shutdown dialog in both. In 5048 the welcome screen is now back how it was in Windows XP, but without the shutdown button. In 4074 if the welcome screen is enabled the shutdown dialog will have icons, and if the welcome screen is disabled the shutdown dialog will have a drop-down menu. In 5048 the shutdown dialog has a drop-down menu regardless of whether the welcome screen is enabled or disabled. In 5048 if the welcome screen is enabled it has the Windows XP login screen, and if the welcome screen is disabled it has the classic logon prompt. In 4074 the login screen is the same regardless of whether the welcome screen is enabled or disabled. In 5048 if the welcome screen is enabled Ctrl-Alt-Delete opens Task Manager, and if the welcome screen is disabled Ctrl-Alt-Delete brings up Windows security options which are in a window. In 4074 Ctrl-Alt-Delete brings up Windows security options which are full screen regardless of whether the welcome screen is enabled or disabled. In 4074 MS Paint saves as a bitmap by default, and in 5048 MS Paint saves as a PNG by default, but they both have the same options. Let's compare Windows Longhorn Build 5048 to Windows Vista Beta Build 5219. On the left we have Windows Longhorn Build 5048 which was compiled on the 1st of April 2005, and on the right we have Windows Vista Beta Build 5219 which was compiled on the 30th of August 2005. Let's compare the skin. In Windows Longhorn the title bar is gray, in Windows Vista Beta the title bar is bluish gray. In Vista Beta the buttons are shiny and have a blue afterglow. The theme is called Arrow in both. I think Windows Vista Beta is also supposed to have transparent title bars as well. In Longhorn the Luna theme is still present, in Vista Beta the Luna theme has been removed. The classic theme is still present in both. In Longhorn the taskbar is silver, in Vista Beta the taskbar is black. In Longhorn the start button is bluish black and lights up blue when you hold the mouse over it. In Vista Beta the start button is black and lights up green when you hold the mouse over it. Let's compare the start menu. In Vista Beta the username has a profile picture next to it, in Longhorn it does not. In Longhorn the top, bottom and right of the start menu are gray, in Vista Beta the top, bottom and right of the start menu are black. In Longhorn the games are in the Games folder in the All Programs menu, in Vista Beta there is a Games folder on the right of the start menu. In Vista Beta there are some new games such as Purple Place and Ink Ball. Some of the old games such as Solitaire and Minesweeper have been updated. Some of the old games such as Pinball have been removed. There are also some new tablet PC tools such as Sticky Notes and Windows Journal. Let's compare the File Explorer. In Longhorn there is a title and icon in the title bar. In Vista Beta the title bar is empty even though there is enough space. In Longhorn there is a menu bar at the top. In Vista Beta there is an action bar at the top and pressing Alt brings up the menu bar. In Longhorn the space usage bars under the drives are flat. In Vista Beta they are 3D and shiny. In Vista Beta the File Explorer action and details bars change color depending on the location. For documents they are green, for pictures they are orange, for music they are red, and for computer they are blue. Let's compare the control panel. In Longhorn the bar at the left lists the control panel categories. In Vista Beta it has the recent tasks at the bottom. In Longhorn there is one column of categories and multiple columns of tasks within each category. In Vista Beta there are multiple columns of categories and one column of tasks within each category. They both also have the option to switch to classic view. In Longhorn, clicking the shutdown button on the start menu brings up the shutdown dialog. In Vista Beta there is an arrow next to the shutdown button which brings up a list of options, and clicking on main part of the shutdown button shuts down. Pressing Alt F4 on the desktop brings up the shutdown dialog in both. In Longhorn the welcome screen is the same as it is in Windows XP. In Vista Beta it has a blue gradient background with a Windows logo in the top left and the users in the middle. There is a shutdown button in the bottom center which has an arrow next to it that brings up a list of options, and clicking the main part of the button shuts down. In Vista Beta when you click on a user it asks you for a password even when that user doesn't have one. In Longhorn if you click on a user that doesn't have a password it just logs on. In Longhorn there is an option to disable the welcome screen and use the classic logon prompt instead. In Vista Beta this option has been removed. In Longhorn when the welcome screen is enabled Ctrl-Alt-Delete opens Task Manager, and when the welcome screen is disabled Ctrl-Alt-Delete brings up Windows security options which are in a window. In Vista Beta Ctrl-Alt-Delete always brings up Windows security options which are full screen. Let's compare Windows Vista Beta Build 5219 to Windows Vista RTM Build 6000. On the left we have Windows Vista Beta Build 5219 which was compiled on the 30th of August 2005, and on the right we have Windows Vista RTM which was released on the 29th of October 2006. Let's compare the skin. In Vista RTM the title bars are transparent and the X maximize and minimize buttons are joined together and joined to the top. I think Vista Beta is supposed to have transparent title bars that look similar to Vista RTM. In Vista RTM when you maximize Windows the title bar is no longer transparent. In Vista RTM you can customize the color of the arrow. In Vista RTM in addition to arrow there is also a basic skin which has 3D bluish-gray title bars, similar to Vista Beta. In Vista RTM the X button is red. In Vista Beta it only goes red when you put the mouse over it. In Vista RTM the menu bar is 3D, in Vista Beta it is not. They both also have the classic theme. In Vista Beta the Start button has the word Start. In Vista RTM the Start button is the Windows logo inside a circle and it partially hangs off the top of the taskbar in the bottom of the screen. In Vista Beta the Windows logo is just white, in Vista RTM it is red, green, blue and yellow. Let's compare the Start menu. In Vista Beta the username and profile picture are on the bar at the top. In Vista RTM the username is at the top of the right column and the profile picture hangs off the top. In Vista Beta the items in the right column of the Start menu have icons next to them. In Vista RTM the icon comes up at the top when you put the mouse over the item. In Vista Beta there is a lock and shutdown button at the bottom right of the Start menu. Each has an arrow next to it that brings up a list of options, and clicking the shutdown button shuts down. In Vista RTM at the bottom right of the Start menu there are standby and lock buttons and an arrow that brings up a menu with the rest of the shutdown and log off options. Pressing Alt F4 on the desktop brings up the shutdown dialog on both. In Vista Beta the default option is shutdown and in Vista RTM the default option is sleep. In Vista RTM there is an option to switch user. In Vista Beta there is not. In Vista Beta the shutdown dialog makes the rest of the screen go grayscale. In Vista RTM it does not. In Vista RTM there is a sidebar at the right which you can add gadgets to. In Vista Beta there is not. In Vista RTM when you hold the mouse over running programs on the taskbar it shows a thumbnail of the running program. In Vista Beta it just shows the name. In Vista Beta the Alt plus Tab switcher has icons and the name of the selected program at the bottom. In Vista RTM the Alt plus Tab switcher has thumbnails and the name of the selected program at the top. In Vista RTM you can also do a 3D window fly-through by pressing Windows key Tab. In Vista Beta pressing Win Tab selects the running programs on the taskbar and you can then move between them using the arrow keys and press Enter to activate the selected one. Let's compare the File Explorer. In Vista Beta the details and action bar change color depending on the location. In Vista Artium the action bar is always dark turquoise and the details bar is always a light turquoise gradient with some lines at the right. In Vista Beta for computer the status bar says the number of items and size, unknown. In Vista Artium it says the specs of the PC. In Vista Artium the folder icons have been updated. Let's compare the control panel. In Vista Beta the bar at the left is a blue gradient. In Vista Artium the bar at the left is a blue to green gradient with some lines at the bottom. In Vista Artium properties has been renamed to personalize. In Vista Beta the display properties dialog has tabs along the top. In Vista Artium the personalization window has a list of items, some of which switch the personalization window to displaying that when you click them and some bring up a dialog that looks like that setting in Vista Beta but with only one tab. In Vista Artium there are some new screensavers such as bubbles. In Vista Beta when changing the background you have to click on each one to see what it looks like and then you have to click apply to set it. In Vista Artium you can see what each background looks like without having to click them and it changes as soon as you click them. Let's compare the login screen. In Vista Beta the background is a blue gradient with a Windows logo in the top left. In Vista Artium the background is a blue and green pattern with some lines. In Vista Beta it has a shutdown button in the bottom center with an arrow next to it that brings up a list of options and clicking the main part of the button shuts down. In Vista Artium it has the name of the operating system in the bottom center and a red shutdown button in the bottom right with an arrow next to it that brings up a list of options and clicking the main part of the button shuts down, and an ease of access button in the bottom left. In Vista Beta when you click on a user it asks you for a password even when that user doesn't have one. In Vista Artium if you click on a user that doesn't have a password it just logs on. Let's compare the Control-Alt-Delete screen. In Vista Beta the background is a blue gradient with a Windows logo in the top left. In Vista Artium the background is a blue and green pattern with some lines. In Vista Beta it says Windows Security in the top center. In Vista Artium it does not. In Vista Artium there is a switch user option. In Vista Beta there is not. In Vista Artium the options have green arrows to the left of them. In Vista Beta they do not. In Vista Artium the cancel button is in the center below the options. In Vista Beta the cancel button is at the bottom to the right of the shutdown button. Let's compare MS Paint. In Vista Artium the icons have been updated. The colors are also different. In Vista Beta the colors are at the bottom by default and in Vista Artium the colors are at the top by default, however this can be changed in both. In Vista Beta Paint saves as a PNG by default and in Vista Artium it saves as a JPEG by default, but they both have the same options. Goodbye.